Math time! We're looking at percent. This comes up all the time in everyday life, and you should be able to do percent in your head. So the key to percent is knowing how to quickly find these percents. 50% of a number, 10%, 5%, and 1%. If you can quickly find these, you can find the percent of any number. So 50%, straightforward. You divide by 2. You can do that quickly in your head. 10% and 1% are the two easiest ones. Because this one you divide by 10, that just results in the decimal shifting to the left, or you divide by 100 for 1%, and then 5%, you take 10%, and then you divide it by 2. So let's take a look at an example here. Say you want to find, we'll do a straightforward one, maybe 85% of 120. Okay, first let's quickly find 10%, 50%, 5%, and 1%. So 10% and 1% are super straightforward. 10% of 120 is going to be 12, and 1% is 1.2. 50%, you cut it in half, you get 60, and then 5% is half of 10%, so it is 6. So you use these numbers to do your calculation. Now 85, you could do 50% plus 10% plus 10% plus 10% plus 5%. That's actually more work. I notice that this is 15% out of from 100, and 100% is obviously 120. That's the number itself. So what I'm going to do is actually subtract 15% from 120. So 15% is going to be 12 plus 6, which is 18. So this is 15%. So then you do 120 minus 15 equals 105. So 85% of 120 is 105. Let's look at some examples, and this should make sense in a minute. Okay, 60% of 240. Let's find 50% and 10%. So 50% of 240 is just half of it, so that's 120, and 10% of 240 is just 24. You add those two numbers together, and you get 144. Again, you should be able to do this in your head. This is mental math. Okay, 85% of 134. This is just like before. I'm going to find 10% and 5% and subtract it from 134. 10% of 134 is just 13.4. 5% is half of that. Remember, decimals, just ignore the decimal. You're finding half of 134. This is 6.7, because 67 is half of 134. And then we're going to add these two together. When you add them, again, ignore the decimal. This right here becomes 1, and this is 0. So 20.1 is what we're subtracting from 134. And you do 134 minus 20, which is 114, and then you minus that 0.1, so it's 113.9. So we have 95% of 248. So I would find 5% and subtract it from 248, because we're 5% away from 100. So 5% equals 10%, which is 24.8. This is 10%. So 5% is half of 10%. So half of 24 is 12, half of 8 is 4. So the calculation I'm doing is 248, and we're going to subtract 12.4. So when you're subtracting decimals, and there's a different video on this, what I do is round up to 13. So you do 248 minus 13, which is 235, and then you subtract, you go down 0.6, because you added 0.6 to get to 13 from 12.4. So this is 235.6. So you have 31% of 82. So I want to find 10%, multiply that by 3 to find 30%, and then add 1%. So 10% is just 8.2, 1% is 0.82. So to find 30%, I take 8.2 and I times it by 3. So to quickly do that, I would just do 3 times 2 and then 3 times 8. 3 times 2 is 6, and then I have my decimal, and then 8 times 3 is 24.6 is 30%, and then I need to add 1% to make 31%. So to add these numbers together, I know this 2 here, this is in the hundredths place, that's just going to stay there because there's a 0 in the hundredths in that spot. So then I add 8 tenths to 6 tenths, and I get, that's 14. So I have 25.42, and this is my final answer. Okay, 46% to 71. I notice it is close to 50%. I'm going to find 50%, then subtract 4%. So 50% of 71 is 35.5. 1% of 71 is just 0.71. You divide by 100. So 4% is going to be 0.71 times 4. And again, this is mental math, so I don't want you to do the algorithm. What you're really doing is 7 times 4. You ignore the decimal, and 7 times 4 is 28. Oops, 28. And then you have 4 times this 100th here, which is 4. So I know my answer is going to be, going to have 284. Then I have to think about, where does the decimal go? This number is less than 1, so my answer is going to be less than 4. So it's 4.84 is the only one that makes sense. So that is going to be 4% is 2.84. To find 46%, I'm going to take 50%, and I'm going to subtract this number, 4%. So this doesn't work out very nicely. So what I would do, if I was trying to do this in my head, you can put a 0 here. This number is going to come down. We know that for sure. There's going to be a 3 up here. And then essentially what we're doing is we're subtracting, we're going to ignore the decimal, 550 minus 284. And I think the best way to do subtraction often when the numbers are big is how much are these numbers different by is the easier way to go about it. So if you add 16 to this number, it becomes 300, and 300 is 250 away from 550. So if you subtract those, it's going to be 266. So I know my answer up here is a 2 and a 6 and a 6, and my decimal has to go there. So this right here is my final answer for 46% of 71. Okay, last one, 23% of 124. I could find 10% and times it by 2, then find 1%, times it by 3. I'm actually going to find 25% and then subtract 2%. So 25% is 1/4. I have to divide by 4. And there's a different video where I show divide by 4. It is often easier to cut it in half 2 times. So if you cut this in half once, you get 62. You cut it in half again, you get 31. So 25% of 124 is 31. And then you have 1% is just going to be 1.24. That means 2% is just going to be this doubled, which is 2.48. And to find 23%, you're going to take 31 and you're going to subtract it from this. So this one is not so nice here. So I'm going to add the zeros here, and I'm going to subtract this without the decimal. So it's really 3100 minus 248. So I'm going to try to find out how much are these numbers different by. Well, if you add 2, you get 250. And then if you add 2,750, you get 3,000. Then if you add 100 more, you get 3,100. So this is going to be 2,852. Again, I just added these numbers together. And there's different videos where I talk about how to do this quickly in your head. It is possible to do in your head. So now I have to think about, where does the decimal go? Well, I had 31. I subtracted only a little more than 2 from it. So my decimal is definitely going to go here. So my answer, 23% of 224 is 28.52. That's it.